I'm a bit of what you might call a purist. I'm like, give me riffs and guitars, get your costumes and keyboards out of here. And if you like that, if anyone likes that stuff, I'm not talking about that just for me personally.
Right.
But that's kind of the ethos I have for it.
John, Wrath and Ruin is coming soon. Exactly a month from when we're talking, because this is Valentine's Day. Although this is not coming out obviously on Valentine's Day. Let's have a romantic conversation here about Wrath and Ruin. Wonderful.
Wrathful.
How are you feeling, man?
And ruinous. I'm feeling great. I'm ready for some wrathful and ruinous romance. Wouldn't be the first time. Yeah. So it's just people have been loving the 2 singles we put out so far, and it's encouraging to me. Before we put this stuff out, there's a period of keeping your fingers crossed and being like, I hope they like it. We did all the work to make this thing, and now we just gotta submit it to the court of public opinion and see. And the court so far likes it.
There you go.
So. And that makes me excited to go out and tour this thing, and I'm excited for people to hear the rest of the record.
Yeah. Now, is that feeling of like, okay, we've done it, we've worked on it, let's see what people think. Was that a stronger sentiment this time? Because whether you like it or not, in between you guys releasing the previous album and this one, I mean, not that people weren't necessarily already saying that before, but I feel in the last few years, all of a sudden, you can't talk about Warbringer without seeing the sentence "saviors of thrash metal" and, the leaders of a new generation and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel that pressure that, people are actually anticipating this album? Maybe even more so than you ever thought people would ever anticipate an album of yours as you were getting started 20 years ago?
Yes, flatly. Yes, I do. And indeed, I think especially last couple records, somewhere in there, it went from, I think the main perception of us went from like, it's one of the thrash revival bands of that movement. Like, we're one of the few survivors now of the time when we started. And I think people see us in a different light. And I think the band also has a pretty long discography now that's generally, most people think anyway, not everyone, has improved over time. And so I think that I personally, I'm biased as hell, but I think we put out some of, if not the finest thrash metal in the last several years. And so the court of public opinion, at least a chunk of it, agrees. And that is pressure, because we can't, if people expect that out of us, we can't come out and suck. And I expect that out of us now.
Right.
So we're really hoping that we can continue to meet or exceed those expectations. So it's a little daunting, I would say, because you can't. Is this riff just cool, or is it cool enough? You end up with that. Is it cool enough to follow Weapons of Tomorrow, the critically acclaimed, right? That kind of thing. Good Weapons of Tomorrow got a great response from the scene, probably the best we've ever got. And we weren't able to tour it for 3 years. That sucked. So that's why that helps explain the 5-year gap here. But absolutely. And I think there was some anxiety among, me at least, that people wouldn't think it was a worthy successor, good. Not because we didn't do the work or anything, but just because one worries about this, right?
Of course.
I think if I didn't worry, it would be the only way I could not worry is if I didn't care. And I do care, so I worry.
Yeah. Now, you already mentioned 2 singles have been released. I've had a chance to listen to the full album, obviously, already, but so one of the singles starts the album of Savior, with the sword and the cross, and where we definitely on this album get the quote unquote stereotypical thrash bangers, if you will, with this song. You guys take your foot off the gas at times, especially in the beginning, and we get some kind of like we've seen a band like Ex Mortis do, like a little bit more of that classic heavy metal influence. We feel some Priest influences in that early section of that song as well. Is that a bit starting the album with that? Is that a bit of a statement then Warbringer today is more than just like a blueprint thrash band at this point?
I mean, I think we've been making that statement for several albums at this point, at least since the fourth one. And I think that we pretty much are just cruising in our own lane at this point.
Yeah.
We didn't have any conscious thought of this song being more or less thrash or whatever. Okay. Also, I'd say one thing, because when we talk about a blueprint thrash band, I would have to say thrash metal is a pretty wide genre, even if we're just looking at the, I don't know, like 84 to 92 arc, right?
Right.
They're just, are we talking Bay Area? Are we talking East Coast? Are we talking German? Are we talking Brazilian? There's even a couple like Eastern Bloc, communist bloc bands that, with your Shad, Aspen, and stuff like that. And there's a wide range of different vocal styles. There's technical thrash, there's melodic thrash, there's power thrash, there's brutal thrash. Like it's a wide range. So even if we did stay wholly within the thrash genre, which we don't, it's still like there's a lot of places to go, and and there's no like one blueprint for it, because it kind of, in the metal genealogy, I think thrash kind of sits right at the middle, and it shares a border with almost every other genre. Maybe not doom. Thrash and doom are kind of antithetical to each other.
Thrash doom. I feel like it's just a challenge now. Now you just put a challenge for yourself.
maybe I do like doom, so but it's hard to like both thrash and doom out. But I guess you could have those parts in the same song, certainly. But anyway, thrash sits at the middle of a lot of different metal genres. It shares a border with them, and we kind of, I think, on this record and our previous records, we kind of on each song try to lean to one end of it or another, and just full range of not even our genre per se, but just of metal that we like. And I'm a bit of what you might call a purist. I'm like, give me riffs and guitars, get your costumes and keyboards out of here. And if you like that, if anyone likes that stuff, I'm not talking about that just for me personally.
Right.
But that's kind of the ethos I have for it. And we try, so in this record, you'll see we got a little bit of like classic heavy metal. I think we kind of do a little less of that than we normally do, though. Like the middle Strike from the Sky is pretty like pretty fist pumping, I'd say. I keep myself distracted by staring at a screen. My mind's always racing, no longer I dream. We got a fair amount of like black metal stuff on there. There's some songs that are a little proggier, stuff like Cage of Air, and Neuromancer leans pretty heavy into death metal, I'd say.
But well, that one, Neuromancer for me is like, all those videos that people put out of like, hey, this is the ultimate try not to headbang challenge videos. I mean, they were maybe a little bit more the rage like 10 years ago or so, but I feel like Neuromancer could definitely be in that list now. That's a tough one not to move your head to. And you mentioned Strike from the Sky, which just, spoiler alert, I mean, besides maybe Last of My Kind, which might be my favorite song of the album, but I have to listen to it more. But Strike from the Sky is up there. You say like, oh, there has lots of different influences, but you mentioned the different regional varieties of thrash. It's clear that Destruction is that you're not necessarily not a fan of Destruction when we listen to a song like that. So what's your
sure.
Where as a purist, but I'm sure that you're a fan of all the sub genres. But we definitely get some Destruction in this album. We do get that more melodic tone that Creator has been doing in the last 20 years. You're gonna be touring with them. Is there if I had to ask you for a favorite regional flavor, the Teutonic thrash comes to mind, or is that just me projecting?
That would probably be my stock answer, because I also can't get enough of when the vocal goes like you know. So you got to hand it to the Germans for that one. And I even occasionally will say a word like German-ish sounding, even though I'm American, because I just love the inflection and the way it sounds.
There's a juiciness to it. Yeah.
It's just like I got razors in my throat. You know, it's great. And so, but you know, I think again, someone actually reviewed our first record and said it was like a hybrid of Bay Area and Teutonic thrash. I'm like, that's actually a pretty good description, because we do pretty much try to take the whole, what we would call the classic metal canon, and put something from everything in our band. Not in every song, but you know, one song leans one way, one leans the other. So for instance, Neuromancer trying to lean more death metal. Last of My Kind, which I'm glad you like, is where, you know, the reference point was like Immortal, At the Heart of Winter, Sons of Northern Darkness kind of era Immortal. That's what we were thinking for the riffs and music on there. And Strike from the Sky, we're looking at just like, destruction and like speed metal in general. And then our own song Firepower Kills, actually. And Strike from the Sky, the way that one leads, I was like, I'm going to do more high shrieks on this than any other song we've done, and I think it does have that. It's a lot of shrieking.
You're making Schmier proud. Now, you said earlier, like, you know, when it comes to finding our style, you're kind of like cruising in your lane. You said, like, it's not too much of a battle plan, if you will, or like, we're not trying to make a statement. Is that the same with, and I'm gonna try to talk about the musicality of the album in a very, very simple term, so that people that are not musicians or not even, like, you know, musical nerds can kind of follow along.
Okay.
What I appreciate, what I like about your band, but this album in particular, is there is a lot of technicality. There's a lot of musicality. There is skill on display, but you guys make it sound so easy, and I mean that as a positive thing. Like, there's a lot of technical stuff, and there's cool solos, and there's really smart songwriting going on, but it never kind of feels show-offy, to use a very non-technical term. I would never label you guys, oh, technical trash, or like, because I find like when people label that, you get bands that try to show how much they can do and how fast and how many notes in one song. With you guys, I feel like you're doing that without making that the focal point. Is there something to that? Is that part of a conversation, or is that also just a band cruising in its own lane?
Well, when I say cruising in our own lane, we're referencing like we have 7 records deep, so we're referencing our own stuff. We're definitely not trying to just make another record, so I just want to make sure that's clear, because we definitely were like, okay, this record's a lower tuning than the one before. There's a whole kind of class power theme, you know, and dystopian vibe that's more pronounced on this. That's very conscious.
Yeah, you're not talking about the medieval times necessarily.
Right. I am, but I'm not. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, we're trying to progress, but from the point where we go, if we're following our own path down our own, you know, to our own journey and stuff, is the idea. As far as the technicality, I used to say it this way, because there are bands where like technical blank metal is a genre, you know, a subgenre. Yeah. And I agree. So, you know, I think treading is cool, first off, because I like metal. So like I would be kind of in trouble if I didn't like treading on your instruments and stuff. But I do think that a record that's too focused on every instrument treading basically can get really dense and not that fun to listen to after about 5-10 minutes. Right. And for that first time, you're like, oh shit. And then sometimes, for me at least personally, I'm like, okay, so I want some headbanging, I want some hooks, I want some of that, and I want all that together. And there are technical bands that can accomplish that, I think. But for us, I used to say that like technique is the craft and the song's the art. And if you and your craft, you can work on your craft all you want, but it has to do something for the art, or it's useless. we have a really good set of players. We can play not everything because we never tried to play like 300 BPM death metal or whatever. It would probably take us some work to pull that off. It's very impressive when you see it. But we, we're trying to pretty much just make the song sound how it should to get the idea across and to get a certain vibe across. And then whatever we can do within that is cool. But everything, we always are very about like whatever's there has to serve the song.
Yeah. I feel like a really good example of that on this record is the song The Jackhammer, where, especially like in the second part of this, or the second half of the song, where you've got like a duel almost going on between the vocals and the lead guitars. And it kind of, in a good way, takes the full spotlight away of like, oh, look at the crazy soloing and the lead guitars, what's going on, because it's this back and forth makes it so much more an integrated part of the song, if you will. And I feel like that was very smart to do. I love how you guys go back and forth there.
Well, and it's just classic call and response, really. And that particular solo, the one I think you're talking about, is just gnarly dive bombs. That stuff, So it's a good one, though. It definitely, as the vocalist, feels cool if the line you say is rimmed. Sure. So I would, definitely, and that's one of the least, I guess, technical solos because it's just gnarly whammy noises. But we felt that's the right vibe. It wouldn't be as cool to have like some arpeggio run in that part. I feel like there's more ornate stuff, and then there's really like dumb caveman stuff, really, like chugging and banging. And why not cover the gamut? We don't have to be one or the other. We got a band, we can play whatever pretty much. So why not use that range? Why not have, and also I think to get like the solo in every metal song, Chase Becker in particular, Chase and Adam are a guitar duo, and Adam on this record in particular leans to like this melodic wah style with like kind of musicality and catchiness forward. And Chase Becker is just doing full shredding pyrotechnics, and he does some really crazy shit. And so that's a cool dynamic too, is even within our players, we got two different approaches to lead guitar, and we can kind of use them at different times. We're like, oh, that's a Chase Becker spot right there, because we know our players and we know what kind of vibe they're going to bring. And so there's times on different songs where we're choosing who does the solo where, and that it'll inject stuff. So like Sword in the Cross has like a big Chase Becker section in it. Through a Glass Darkly has like I think my favorite Adam solo on the record. And it is like there's a toolkit we got as a band and as songwriters, and we just try to use it as well as we can.
This album release is it's by far not the end for you. It's the starting point of an extremely ridiculously busy time for you, because you are going on some truly insanely cool shows. You're going obviously with Skeletal Remains and Allegiant here for North America. You're going to play Toronto in a few weeks from now. You're also going to be through Europe with Decapitated and Cryptopsy Incarnation, which is just like such a cool package as well. And then throughout the summer, you've got Creator and a bunch of festivals. I hope you're rested because it's going to be a wild ride for you. We're running out of time fast, but to kind of wrap us up, like we've got these 3 very different tours that are going to happen. You'll have different times to play as well, because one obviously you're headlining, one others you're supporting, and then you've got festivals as well, where depending on the festival you'll have a lot of time, less time. Even though the broader audience might think of you as a newer band, you're 20 years old, you got 7 albums. So what can we expect from all these shows? What can we keep our eyes open for?
Well, whenever you see Warbringer, you know exactly what you're going to get. We're going to wreck the building, and we're going to blow your freaking head off, and we're going to headbang for the entire set. And that's true. That was true on day one, and that's true 20 years in. And, we're going to try to give you the best, most explosive metal show that we can. and come and see it. And you might leave with some bruises, or I hope so.
Awesome. Well, I'll see you in Toronto
All right.
soon, and I can't wait for it. I think you can tell I had a lot of fun with the new album. So I can't wait to see everybody else's reaction once the album is out. It'll be great, and I'll keep my fingers crossed. I'll keep my fingers crossed to hear the last of My Kind life. I know that might be wishful thinking, but I'll keep my fingers crossed. John, great
Okay,
talking to
hey,
you.
that's cool. Cool, you gravitate towards that one. That's one of the ones I wrote the lyric for that one last on the record. I actually finished it while I was in the studio, so I'm glad it came out so strong to you. And I did a more like blackened rasp for that whole song, and it's the only song with the lyrics aren't a total bummer.
Like there is something special about the last songs on a Warbringer album. They tend to stand out for me, but on this
Awesome.
one, yeah, I feel like I had my opinions down, and then the last song hit, and I was like, oh yeah, no, strike everything. Well, strike pun intended, because I think Strike from the Sky before that was my favorite song on the album, but then yeah, The Last of My Kind was really cool. Awesome. Well, John, I'll see you in a few weeks.
I'm glad to hear that, and I hope it's the kind of record where if you keep listening, your favorite will keep changing, because we tried to give you 8 songs that are each worth your time. So thank you very much. And I'll see you in Toronto. Take care, man.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.